Okay, hi everyone, and welcome again to a session of Breaking into Data. Um, Thanks so much for coming. I know that there's lots of other places, lots of other webinars to go to, so I definitely appreciate that you chose to spend part of your Wednesday evening with me. So I'm Aaron Falus, founder of Promotable and also host for Breaking into Data. So we do stuff like this every single week, and we do this to help you, of course, break into data, but more importantly, it can flex those data muscles, understand how it works from practitioners who do it every single day. So today we're going to learn more about how data works on the marketing side. And honestly, for me, this is one of the most underappreciated areas, even for what I would say like data science in general, learning how to ask that question, collect the data, make sure you're getting meaningful metrics, and more importantly, making data-driven decisions, the whole reason we're here. Keep in touch as well. Upcoming events over the next in January, we've got 3 or 4 of them lined up. So it'll be really, really cool. We've got director of analytics over from Marriott. We've got another one from Northwestern Mutual. So it'll be really good time. Please stick around afterwards. We'll have a Q&A session. Anyone who's interested, you can go ahead and raise your hand. You'll see on the right-hand side there is a raised hand button. You can do that, and then we'll go ahead and invite you to the stage. You can share your screen, and you can ask your question, and so we can all hear it and chime in. And then we'll also have networking afterwards. Some of you may have seen the tables in the lounge area, if you will. So you can basically click on that and join a table discussion. From there, for anyone who wants to dive deeper into data and go beyond these kinds of talks and webinars, Promotable, who sponsors Breaking into Data, we also do data analytics classes for data newbies or business practitioners. You might be in marketing or product or finance, and you want to dive deeper. You want to be able to ask the right question, do the SQL query, make the Tableau dashboard, and learn how to make those decisions. Those are 5 hours a week. If anyone's interested, feel free to come say hello to me. I'll be hanging out afterwards. Feel free to say hello anyway. I'd love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Anita. We've got a good-sized crowd here, so kick it off.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me, Aaron. I'm very, very excited to be here and to deliver this small dive into data, for marketers. And of course, you were right that it's a quite underappreciated area when it comes to data. But I will say that it's not underappreciated just by data scientists. It's also underappreciated by marketers themselves. So that is a very interesting thing to explore. And I'll be happy to dive in. I prepared a small deck just to showcase how data can influence a marketing strategy, potentially sales strategy, and how can people who work in marketing, not necessarily like marketing or practitioners, but also business people, leverage the surveys and this underneath hidden power that all these surveys carry on. So let me share my screen real quick. And I know this tool is quite new for all of us, so bear with me if I make some technical glitches. So I'm really good at this. So just give me one moment and bear with me. All right. So let's start. Let's start our presentation and let's start this data-driven marketing dive in, which is definitely one of the most interesting topics which we could only discover in terms of marketing science. And I definitely do want to emphasize on this part that marketing is a scientific discipline. It does not stand for like unicorns and all the lovely creatives that are done by many people and many departments. Now, marketing itself is a very scientific discipline that is definitely data driven. So a little bit about myself. My name is Anita. Don't even try to pronounce my last name. It's way too hard. But if you're interested, that's Alkimovic. And I'm a practicing marketer. I am a senior marketing manager at Lease Accelerator. That's a leading company for lease lifecycle automation. And that's the software. It's a SaaS company. It's software for accountants for achieving your auditing compliance, and that's a beautiful software for people who do a lot of work related to data. So I'm very happy to work at this company and to leverage all the powers and tools that we might bring to our strategy. So in my daily activities, I use a lot of data, not only for clarifying some things, not only for supporting some statements, but also for building this brand storytelling and brand strategy. Because you cannot rely on a small, simple statement that comes from your head. And that's basically only your assumption. You should make sure that every single step you make in marketing is backed by data. And today I hope to prove it once more for everyone who who is doubting it, and probably bring in some ideas on how to leverage some data and how to use data and how to actually make sure that your company and your marketing strategy has this data-driven marketing approach. So what is data-driven marketing? Well, data-driven marketing lets data decide what you do. So you can fully rely on this because it's numbers, and numbers, they never lie. We all know it. And data helps you to find your target audience and hit your targets in terms of leads, in terms of messaging, in terms of bringing the right customers to the right place, in terms of finding some clusters of challenges that your product or your company or your brand solves. So that's what data-driven marketing is about. So here's a small slide to showcase what are actually components of data-driven marketing and how we can leverage this data marketing approach into actual life and real life. So what is data-driven marketing? Data-driven marketing is a process by which marketers can gain insights from various industries to make sure that their messaging, their positioning, every single step they take works and works for good. And what is good for a company? Revenue. So we do not count anything besides besides actual brand awareness or something else. Revenue is something that we are always targeting. So marketing, essential existence is in bringing leads. So we are judging it from this perspective. So data-driven marketing is always helping in creating target messaging. So every single industry has some pain points, and marketers' job is to solve this complicated puzzle and to fit in this missing piece, which is called messaging. Data can help you find this messaging. So later in the deck, I will show you how you can segment your audiences and how you can actually make sure that data works for you and for your messaging. Right message at the right time is the ultimate goal of data-driven marketing, because data helps you identify the right timing and data helps you identify the right messaging. Story branding and right channels. To build the right story brand, and story brand, that's the whole concept where you are basically writing the story of your company based on some data which you receive, some industry insights, and some actual pain points that your target audience has. And right channels, of course, those are media where you are achieving and where you are connecting to your audience, where you find your audience and hit to their hearts. So they come to you and they make sure that they like your brand, and you make sure that you have everything you need to offer to them because you cover their needs. And of course, the third component is the right time. Data can tell you when to approach your customers or clients or whatever you call them. They can be called differently in many, many industries. So data can show you the right timing, when to approach them, how to approach them, by which means, and whether it's better to do the event on Thursday night or whether it's better to do the event on Friday night. You can make the assumption that Thursday is better, but what does the data say? So that's something that data-driven marketing solves, and data-driven marketing gives the answers to these three questions and very clearly helps to align them with your marketing strategy. So this slide shows basically how many companies perceive this data-driven marketing approach. So if you wake up every single marketer who works in the world at 4 a.m. in the morning and ask, what is the top three like marketing components, or what your marketing consists of? This person will immediately say creative, data, and media. And yes, this is marketing mantra. This is something that we all are striving for. We all are creating some assets, and we are creating evergreen content. And thanks God that it's evergreen content right now, because before it used to be something more of like we create to create. We create some cool stuff to showcase that we have a new designer in the team or something like that. And right now, of course, that's evergreen content that brings actual value to the audience. So this is great. Media is some channels to reach out to your audience. So you can, you should choose the right channel. You should post your assets on this channel. You should approach your audience there. And finally, you should use data to analyze everything what you are doing and improve and experiment. Great. So this is something that right now everybody knows, everybody works on, and this is a basic components of a typical marketing strategy that everybody would have. It has like always these three components. But what is data-driven marketing approach, and how do we make sure that these elements are not just intercepting or not just going alongside, but actually interacting? So marketers came up with some very fancy idea to actually combine these three and to use them all together in a cluster. That's great. And that is the actual step before they fully plunged into data marketing approach. Because when it comes to data, every single element should be driven by data. There is no such thing as evergreen content without proof that this content will help your audience in solving some challenge. So use recent data research and trends to create these assets. So a couple of years ago, everything was about cloud. So everybody was moving cloud. Everybody was doing some modernization and digitalization. So digitalization was a buzzword. So everybody was doing something about it. And clients liked it. Target audiences were coming to the brands who were all about the cloud and something interesting. Right now, it's more about, I would say AI. It's more about automation. It's more about processes. So data shows it. Data shows the change of the trend, and data shows what assets are most interesting for the audience, what assets bring the most value. So go to Google, check out the keywords, check out what your potential audience is looking for, and try to provide only the materials, only assets that are important for them. Because we do not have time. Nobody has free, 10 minutes out of the day, where this person will read a lot of watery stuff on your product. No, nobody likes salesy, cheesy kind of approach. Everybody likes when it hits straight to the goal. So think of it like that. If you have water, you need to give this water because the person you want to give this water to is thirsty. You don't give the water to fill in some gaps or to sell something. You give the water to the thirsty person. So this is the mantra which I want to bring to everybody. When you create something, ask the question, why? And this question will help you in actually tossing a lot of ideas which do not have any data approval behind them. Next, we talked about media. And of course, data can show you a lot of interesting things about your audience. So it's not just like we're going to reach everyone by email, or it's not like we're going to create some Facebook campaign. You got to segment your audience, and you got to understand which channel is the most appropriate for this audience. Where does this audience live? What does this audience do in a particular channel? If you want to reach out for millennials and sell them, for example, CRM, you wouldn't do anything on Facebook. First of all, Facebook is dead for millennial kind of generation, right? And secondly, normally Facebook is not the platform where you are using your different softwares and showcasing them. That's more for LinkedIn, right? Or wrong? What does the data say to us? So you need to make sure that you find this scientific data proof to every statement which you make. If you want to reach out to people who are 65 and older, that's where you go, to Facebook. And that was the biggest, probably amazing discovery of my own. Because honestly, when I started doing some side project, some startup, which can help identify how busy the stores are, I saw that by advertising on Facebook, I would bring a lot of just general public to my website and generally to the application. Wrong. I reached out only to people who were more than 65 years old. And that was quite an amazing discovery for me, because I never thought that this type of audience, these demographics, will be actually so interested in something digital, in some application that you actually need to be quite tech savvy in order to use. They loved it, and that was a discovery for me. And if I used data approach, probably I would come to it much faster. And the third element, of course, data. Every single marketing step should be backed by data. That's why, so that you don't have to try and experiment multiple times. Data helps you to build this path faster. And even if you have a couple iterations to your project, to your strategy, or maybe to some of your campaign, you will be able to reach your goal faster if you are doing something which is backed by data, not just by some assumptions, because you have a beautiful mind, just like million other people who are, working in your same industry and probably for competing companies. They all have different perception, but you need to find this clustering in minds of your target audience. So nobody cares what you think. Everybody should care what your audience thinks. That's how you sell the product. And that's how you make sure that your marketing efforts are not wasted. So how can data impact your marketing? First of all, when you start using data approach and when you literally start asking question why and backing it up with some numbers, you will see a significant drop in your leads, or whatever you are calling leads. Why? Because there will be a shift from quantity to quality. By segmenting your audience, by making it, by making it smaller, by making more targeted message, and by crafting it and spending some time, of course, you will lose a lot of such wild card audience. You cannot just reach out to everyone. You need to make a proper research prior to reaching out to them. So you will lose some of the quantity of your leads. So your marketing department should be very much aware of the fact that it's not about the quantity anymore. It's about the quality. The leads you're going to get will be moving on the funnel much faster than the leads you got before. They will be marketing qualified or sales qualified, depending on how you work in your company. And they will be willing to connect with your brand. They will be willing to talk to you or to interact with you in any other way. They are willing to do it right now, and they will be willing to do it in the future, because you found the audience that can actually come to you and find a solution to their potential problem. So what data brings to marketing? So first of all, market research and positioning, that's the most important. Backed by data, it will go smooth. Buyer personas and segmentation. Again, if this all is backed by data, you will be able to segment your audience in smaller pieces and understand your customers better. By understanding your customers, you'll get their problems. By getting their problems, you'll be able to solve them and give them the solution they all are waiting for. The right messaging and message evaluation. So if you think that your message is so awesome, ask a 5-year-old kid. If this 5-year-old kid cannot understand this messaging, your messaging sucks. That is true. If you cannot explain something to a kid, audience will not understand it. Even if your audiences are super tech savvy, or if they are investors or if they are, I don't know, hospital surgeons. They will not get it if a kid doesn't get it. Make it simple, back it by data. Of course, the next one is database and marketing campaigns. That's the bread of all the marketing. Marketing campaigns, ABM, we are sending it to a bunch of people. A bunch of people are coming to the website or attending our event or downloading our guide. That is all what data is about, because by bringing some data in place, we are making our approach more personalized, and we are making sure that we are not just throwing our pieces to every single corner. We are actually targeting it and making sure that our efforts are not wasted. Do not waste efforts. That's a marketing mantra which everybody should understand and should kind of percept it and accept it as their own kind of strategy for life. Do not waste efforts. Create only things that matter and reach out to the audiences that matter to your brand and to who you will actually be able to help. Because these audiences are the most open-minded about your product, even if it's new. And of course, database, you can get some context from a third party. And normally how it is, you get the name, you get the email, and you just shoot. Well, if you want to do things properly, you do some research. So what is behind this name? You do some data research on their LinkedIn or on other social media or on other media, at least the website. So adding a little bit of personalization to your campaign will make sure that the person doesn't toss your email or doesn't toss your message on LinkedIn immediately. Because think about this like cheesy, salesy messages that you get on LinkedIn every single time. You just don't read them. But you read something that corresponds directly to you. You read something that you like. You read and you pay attention to something where the person actually did a research on you, which is a super important thing to do. Okay, so of course, creative and channels, trend creation, that's something super important for data and how it can impact your marketing. It's definitely, if you know the trends, you will be able to bring a lot of interesting things to your marketing and spice it up a little bit. So right now I would really want to move to surveys, and I'll go quite fast and I will stop on actual case study just to show how much value surveys can bring. So giving you a small overview on the surveys. So there are generally three types, but that's three types which I can identify as the most important for the marketing. Of course, if you read some literature, if you go to different sources, you'll find much more in-depth information about the surveys and many more types of them. But those are the three which I find the most valuable for marketing. So it's marketing research surveys, message evaluation surveys, and marketing and market shaping surveys. So those are quite important and quite useful when it comes to marketing strategies. So when you do a typical market research survey, you are able to, first of all, find your market and understand what the share of your market is. And sometimes it's done by third-party companies. Sometimes it's done by the company itself. Depends on the budget, depends on the abilities and opportunities. Second is market profiling. And this is a very important thing for identifying your audience, for segmenting your audience, and making sure that your product actually solves a real problem. And tracking survey. Tracking surveys are normally the ones used for tracking the state of the industry or tracking some technology adoption stage. Basically, just figuring out where your audience is in terms of some factor. For example, technology adoption or your software adoption, depending on what you want. The next one is positioning and messaging surveys. These are quite important if you want to make sure that your brand awareness is on top, that you are doing the right job as a marketer, and the audience perceives your vision and the vision of your company in the right way. Because sometimes there might be some quite interesting situation when it's not the reality, but you think it's real, and when your audience comes to you, you understand that they see your brand totally different, in a totally different ways than you would even imagine. And that's where this like conflict of interest comes, and you should, definitely perceive the idea of the audience because you work for them. That's the most important thing which you can do. So, of course, brand awareness and brand perception surveys and concept testing. That's quite important and quite interesting surveys when it comes to testing some idea or testing some feature or testing some potential feature. You are trying to identify interest. You don't know yet, but you have a couple concepts and you're trying to identify the one which is more popular than others, the one which is perceived better, the one which actually works for the audience. And marketing survey in its pure and very nice state. So that's the survey which is actual bread for all the marketers. So you can use a lot of things from these surveys. You can use this survey itself is a valuable asset in the marketing, but the results which such surveys bring, they can feed your marketing campaign for the entire year. And I'm not kidding. And you will know why very, very soon. So what marketing survey shows you? First of all, industry insights. You can learn some things, from very narrow audience, with very narrow questioning, and they answer this question. You learn what you need in order to shape your message, in order to understand some details about your audience. State of the industry market surveys. Those are usually annual surveys that help you see how your industry or industry you're working for changed throughout the years. So you can see results from 5 years ago, you can see results right now, you see the actual changes, and you know how you need to progress. Especially in technology surveys, you need to track these surveys very, very carefully because they show slight change which might significantly impact your future campaigns. So you should be aware of it, and you should not be the last person to hop on the train, right? You should be one of the first ones. And these surveys actually show it to you. And reaction surveys. Oh, wow. This year has shown that COVID-19 is the topic number one for the reaction survey. How many of them we've seen? Like, how did your industry change during the COVID-19? What did you do with your employees during COVID-19? What was your reaction to COVID-19 and how did you survive? So all these are kind of reaction surveys, and this year we had a lot, and I'm sure that there are more to come, and also created by my fellow marketers, so I'm looking forward to it and not looking forward to it because everybody's kind of tired of pandemic. So survey results processing is something that is the core for the survey itself. So if we talk about survey, 90% of it lies here in this particular slide. It's results of the survey, how you process, how you use them, and how you're able to actually use the small nuggets of information you get for the future assets that you will create. So, of course, you're able to segment your audience by questions. You're able to identify needs and different trendings that are, already you can see in the survey. Of course, you can get creative and start thinking about assets and channels that you're going to be reaching this particular audience who are participating in your survey. And of course, the survey will help you use the right data during the right time. Why? Because you will nugget it. Make a small pieces of information and feed your audience throughout a really long time. Example here. So a couple years ago, I've been working at the company that was Salesforce customization company. And this company, what that company did was customizing Salesforce so that it would serve the needs of the customers. Basically, it would create the reports that they needed. It would have functionality that was only necessary. And that was the core work of the company. And those were the core results which we got from a very generic survey. We didn't even mean to make it like some of a big deal. So we found out that, those were the 5 points which we found out. So we found out that not necessarily the technology is used as expected, not all the functionality is used. Probably not everybody wants to deal with Salesforce a lot during their day and during their work. And of course, everyone was not very likely to customize their system because everybody was quite skeptical about all the things that going on in Salesforce customization. So we made certain conclusions. on this data. And of course, users do not always recognize the value of the system. They do not usually use all functionality, and they need education on how Salesforce customization works, how beneficial it can be, what ROI they can make. So those were the general conclusions which we brought up to our, to our report and thought, okay, now what can we do with this information? You would think that we would just create one report and that's going to be it and probably share it on different channels. Now check out what we did with just based on these 5 findings which we identified throughout the survey. We created 3 state of the industry reports based on just these 5 points. We created 21 pieces of assets related to infographics, posters, different maps, and something very nice, funny, and very easy to present. We created 4 podcasts purely based on these topics to educate our audience, to bring it to attention, to make sure that we are doing the right thing. We made 5 how-to guides, which means that we were expanding our capabilities throughout the industry. White papers, 4 of them. We made 18 blog posts, and I'm not joking. Seriously, there were 18 blog posts written based on these 5 pieces of information which we got. We conducted 3 interviews. We made 6 very targeted ABM campaigns. We created 20 digital ads campaigns, which were highly targeted and which were targeting particular audiences based on our survey. We created 9 webinars educating our customers, potential customers, and general audience. We went to the conference, of course, it was before COVID-19 times, 11 times. So seriously, 11 times we spoke about our findings on this survey. It fed us throughout the entire year. We created 2 dedicated events ourselves, where we came, where we were main sponsors there. We were the creator, and people came to listen to us and, to share their experience with the product. And this survey helped us to create new messaging based on the findings. And since we had new messaging, we identified that our brand was kind of lame, and we created a new website to make sure that it all worked all together. This all came from these 5 pieces of information. So now you can probably realize how powerful the data can be and how it can make your life much easier if you know what you're doing with it. And here I'm coming to an end. Here's the QR code for my LinkedIn. Feel free to check it out and add me if you have any information or just want to connect. I will be very, very happy to do so. And here I come to an end of my presentation.
Well, that was really, really good, really fascinating. I had a couple of conversations on the side with people who are saying that it was really, really cool. For me, this is something that, it's like it's stuff that seems straightforward, but really isn't. But kind of, at the end of the day, it's like, it feels like these are some of the biggest pain points, which is like, you have that question, you learn all this new information, and you can take clear action. So that's super interesting. I'd like to invite anyone who has questions. I'd love to invite you guys to the stage, kind of join the conversation, and we can kind of take it from there. So feel free to raise your hand. There should be a raise hand button on the right-hand side, or you could also, here we go. Perfect. Aaron, I just want to say I like your name. I'm not biased at all. Here we go.
Am I unmuted? Hi.
You're on.
Hi, Anita. Great presentation. I wanted to know, what are the biggest tools you're using for testing quality and testing KPIs in regards into marketing? Because I'm getting a lot of marketing offers, and I don't know where to begin my journey in regards into the marketing sector.
Well, the biggest tool which will show whether your marketing efforts pay back or not is, of course, Salesforce or any sales or CRM system which you are about to use. So marketing is always intercepted with sales departments, right? So basically their funnel is going to be your funnel, only with the difference in is that you're going to bring some marketing qualified leads, sometimes sales, it depends, but you will have mutual funnel, and this funnel will show how much your efforts pay. So you will be able to see how many leads came from particular channel. You will be able to see how much you contribute to the general pipeline, and you will actually be able to identify that your sales team doesn't follow up necessarily, that you need to keep them a little bit stronger. So I would say that CRM system would work if you want to showcase the marketing work throughout the entire department and throughout the entire probably company, right? But if we are talking about marketing itself, like as a department, there every single I would say asset, whether it's digital or if you're throwing some campaigns. Of course, there are a lot of tools such as Marketo. That's a tool normally used for, or any other basically agent for emails is used for marketing campaigns, right? So you also can get some metrics from there. Analytics, any analytics you're using for the website. But when it all comes in your CRM system, and Salesforce is just the most powerful, and since I have a special bond to this to this software, I always talk about it. But generally, any CRM system will be able to help you see like what you bring in terms of value, in terms of leads, in terms of their quality. Hope this answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
And then I saw another comment from Aaron as well. Aaron, did you want to ask your question about A/B testing as well?
Yeah, I see it being thrown around a lot, and I have some ideas of what it is, and I've read some literature about it. I just wanted to know your take on in regards into marketing, if A/B testing is part of that, part of those tools that you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Every campaign, if you're making it ideally, would have a couple iterations and would have a couple, different ways to go. For example, if you customize for a particular audience, you will have normally 3 different messages you're trying to send. And you're dividing this audience and sending these messages. Then you see the data, the one which works goes to the more broader audience, and you're able to, to check out the results over there. But normally you are using just some email agents that you normally would use. Some Marketo, somebody uses MailChimp, somebody uses HubSpot, like whatever you establish in your marketing organization as the core tool set. So all these tools have the capability, otherwise nobody would be using them. Sure.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, no, you're totally right. But I thought that was a really good question because we see it's a buzzword. People throw it around all the time. And then in startup land in San Francisco, you hear Optimizely a lot. It's really cool. Not cheap, but it's like I think we talk about that. It's like, well, what do we do with that, and what value can we bring? And it's all data stuff at the end of the day. I saw another question from. Let me go back into the chat here. Brian, I'm just going to see if, I guess I can't invite him to the stage. Brian asked, he's got no experience in marketing. Here we go. Hopefully that's a raised hand. Oh, someone else. Well, we'll get to Brian's question first, and then Emilio, you're up next. But Brian asked, he has no experience in marketing. Where should he start? Super broad question. But I feel like since you're the marketer, you should give him a couple of pointers.
Sure, start with your heart.
You have to like it, like everything.
No, of course I'm kidding. Like marketing is in any other career. Of course, it has many paths. A person might study some art major or history, and then suddenly realize that the power of words works better when it's used for selling stuff. So basically, you can start by simply reading some marketing related books. Of course, I would say marketing from by Keeler. I think it's called Marketing, and the author is Keeler, and it was written in 1980. so that is the Bible of all the marketing, I guess. So all the concepts are written there. If you want to know the basics, of course, just start from there. And if you want to, kind of plunge into and start like with some positions in the company, of course, some junior specialists, they are normally hired and they're doing a lot of job related to social media. So if you know how to post on Instagram and your posts bring a lot of likes, it doesn't mean that you can become a top marketer, but you can start your work as a social media manager and move from there. So I see this is like a really broad question in terms of like if you want to start like from scratch, if you want to pursue some studies, or if you want to like start from a particular level. So that's something that I would love to clarify. But is as any other job, you gotta be creative, but you also gotta know what you're doing and have some sales concepts in mind.
Yeah. And like anything, I think there's like, learning that to get better at what you're doing. And then if you want something a little bit more modern, HubSpot has a great blog. Go through that. Lots of good stuff there. Emilio, let me just, here we go.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep. Would you mind also just like introducing yourself, just giving us a heads up in terms of your name and maybe what industry you're in?
Yeah, so Emilio Di Benedetto. I come from the telecom industry. I'm a product owner and more from the engineering side, but I have worked with like BI platforms and have an interest in analytics. The thing that I was amazed about was the example, and I apologize, I joined a bit late, so
All good.
you may
So you can always go back.
yeah, but you gave the Salesforce example where you had 5 question or 5 observations from the survey, and then you mentioned like all of these assets like 18 blog posts, 20 digital art, 20 digital ad campaigns, 21 infographics. So can you just like what were all the variations? Like how did you like how do you actually write 18 blog posts about what seemingly like is it because you're specializing in targeting of you have like so many different segments of the market that you've identified?
So,
Well, yes, thank you.
action from your data, right? Data to action. How do we get there?
Sure. Well, first of all, you see these five things, and you are basically just try to create the buckets, buckets of assets which you want. So we definitely knew that we wanted to, to create some podcasts related to this. We knew that we needed some blog posts. So basically, what you need to do is to literally nugget each sentence of each finding which you can find and blow it up to a huge problem, making sure that it's like urgency that market cannot stand. So people will not survive if they don't adapt Salesforce right now, and if their sales but it's true. So if their sales department does not really fully adapted to Salesforce, and if they're still taking like sticky notes and then putting them to random places, then it's a big problem in a huge scale. So, you can make this problem in a couple ways. So you can create some, how to guide, for example, how to make sure your department is fully covered and understands how to use Salesforce. You can actually make the guide on how to make your department use Salesforce and how to use Salesforce. So those are 2 different assets for 2 different audiences, and both of these audiences can bring you to one goal. The company will actually purchase the tool, or the company will purchase your services for helping them in it. So you need to look at one problem, and you need to look at all the possible angles of this problem. And then when you identify all these angles, you will be able to cover it with all the possible assets. We went really wild there because I had like carte blanche on doing anything I needed because I was in charge. I was the chief marketing officer there, so I made my department work. So they literally like they were creating this asset, and of course it wasn't just like create for creation. Again, we created for targeting specific audience and to making sure this audience actually identifies themselves with the problem. So just come up with list of assets you want to create and come up with a list of problems you want to cover. And it all will just go so smoothly from there.
Thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. I guess there we go. Cool. Yeah, that's I think always from the marketing side, right? You're always thinking about how do we have more content. Cheryl, I just saw in the chat was asking, what was the book that you had mentioned?
Well, that's just called marketing. So I might be wrong about the author, but this book is called Marketing. The first time it saw the world in 1980, and I'm sure that the name of the author is Killer. But I will double check. After the event, I'll just Google it to make sure it's the one.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll give everyone a couple more minutes. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'll use the moderator's prerogative and kind of ask my burning questions, which are more just along the lines of like, obviously at this point you've had a bunch of different roles. You clearly, you've like run stuff. Now you're at a big startup. Well, you've raised a lot of money, right? And how big the company is, different question. But kind of what are like the biggest pain points that you see? In terms of like how marketers now use data. What are they doing? What are they not doing? What are the things that bother you?
That's a long way to go, I would say. I would say that right now situation is much better when I just started doing all this marketing magic, and I hate when somebody tells it. But it's something like that. So I can say that nowadays marketers use data, yeah, and it's awesome, and they use data, more for like sales kind of points, and they are, they're correlating and kind of coordinating their actions with sales departments, which is great. And I always say that marketing and sales, they go together, but their marketing does not support sales. Marketing partners sales. So marketing is not sales, sales personal assistant who will just create whatever the sales department needs. But marketing actually like brings this empowerment to sales, with all the assets, with all the guidance, with all the audiences. And here where we see a lot of problems. So sales department normally has, their own perception of what they want to deal with. Marketing has normally like bunch of campaigns going on. Sales department is not aware of it. And marketing just throws a campaign to wild audiences that they acquired from, I don't know, ZoomInfo or, somewhere else. So they're just creating whatever they think their audience is. So unfortunately, there is always like very poor research, and that's a big problem. So research on who you want to target and with what messaging, because normally messaging is created just like, within probably a couple days, you just craft the email, you send it out, you see what happens, then you craft the entire cadence, etc. It shouldn't be done like this. There should be a research behind every single like point you want to make, and especially when you craft a message, this is public facing. This is something that you are sending, and this, if that's your first touch point, you cannot create it in the evening with a glass of wine. And then, we're working from home. So that's something a lot of people are trying to find their inspiration in. So, so it should be more coordinated. So I find a lot of troubles with like actual data, and like backing up data. So I often find myself stopping and asking, why are we doing it? Are we doing it in the right way? Why? So what is the data behind it?
Yeah, well, you bring up a question that for me is like my soapbox. I think for anyone else who's come to all of our events, for me the biggest problem that I see when I go and talk to, I was talking to a director of analytics at a Fortune 500 company this morning, and we we want to talk about the sexy stuff, the cool tools, but honestly, his pain point was people don't get the question. I was telling you earlier, it was he was complaining about the vanity metrics, but it's the same thing, right? It's like if you get the question wrong, you can do all the data in the world, and it's totally worthless. Well, maybe not totally worthless, but it's not going to help you. But yeah, but when you're thinking like obviously when you're hiring for your team, is there something that you think like most marketers have, whether it's junior marketers coming out of school, but what's like that like special thing that you look for when you're like, hey, when you're looking through like a stack of resumes, what stands out to you? Is there a particular data thing, or is it something else?
Oh well, of course, when it comes to hiring, you see a specific like. Even marketing department has its own like segmentation, right? So yeah. not like marketer is not like a wizard with 1,000 hands. So we of course have somebody who is more focused on copywriting. You have somebody who is more focused on ABM campaigns and actual lead generation. So it's all like you should see like which piece you are lacking most. What skill set you need most. If you need to create a lot of blog posts, find a copywriter-based person. The person who likes to write, who knows the industry, who at least worked in this industry or like is able to talk bullshit about it at first. So that's something that you want to find. But if you want to find a lead gen person, you need to make sure that the person understands what lead generation is, what are some ABM campaigns, and how to actually track the metrics in a CRM system or any marketing system. So there where actual like skill plus tool set comes to mind. So you need to make sure that what kind of person you need most. So you are not hiring just to hire marketers. You are hiring people with more narrow kind of focus to make sure that people like doing what they are doing, and also kind of you get what you want. You create the team from multiple beautiful minds that work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. This has been a really good conversation. I want to invite everyone who's here. So we're both going to go back onto the lounge. So you'll see that on your screen. We'll hang out at one of the tables. Feel free to come say hello, ask us questions, or what have you. And if you're not able, definitely come to our next event. Thanks again for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.